For many, the Confederate flag is a symbol of hate. For others, an important part of our nation's history. Joining us today is Michael Higginbotham, author of Ghosts of Jim Crow, Ending Racism in Post-Racial America, and endowed professor at the University of Baltimore School of Law. We want to welcome him back. Thanks so much for being with us, Professor.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's always great to have you. Very important discussion we're having here about the Confederate flag, and it seems to have come to the forefront after the Charlestown shooting.
Absolutely.
Tell us more about your reaction to that and the calls for it to be banned.
Well, my reaction was it's a very, very sad and tragic incident in our history, but it's certainly not an incident that hasn't happened before, and so it's part of a long history that we have. It's an unfortunate one, but it's one that, as I think Governor Nikki Haley said, it's one that is part of our past but doesn't have to be part of our future.
What do you think when it comes to the impact that the discussion will have on Maryland, because it's pretty much nationwide that everybody's talking about removing it?
Well, in South Carolina, it's about removing a flag from the Capitol dome. Here in Maryland, it's about removing it from license plates. There are 9 states that allow the Confederate battle flag to be on license plates. Maryland is one of those 9 states, and it's the only state that did not secede from the Union that allows that to occur. And so we're going to have that discussion. I think it's an important one to have. The Confederate battle flag means different things to different people, and I understand that. For some, it means honoring one's ancestors and nostalgia, sort of like the Dixie song, you know, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times, they are not forgotten. But for many others, it is a symbol of hatred and oppression. There's a long history. 3 incidents I think are very important. 1860, the South Carolina Declaration condemns the North for interfering with the institution of slavery. 1948, Strom Thurmond, a famous segregationist, led the Dixiecrats out of the Democratic Party because President Harry Truman desegregated the military. In 1961, the flag was raised on the South Carolina Capitol dome in response to a desegregation order of the schools pursuant to Brown versus Board of Education. So the history is clear, and for many the flag represents an embrace of slavery, an embrace of Jim Crow segregation, and of course most recently an embrace of 9 individuals being murdered.
Right, and what you're referring to is the suspected shooter, Dylann Roof, who held it prominently in many pictures that we saw online. Why do you think not only people like Dylann Roof, but others in the Ku Klux Klan are using this to represent their feelings?
Well, as I said, the flag has a long history, and that history embraced slavery and embraced segregation. And I think what you're seeing is current individuals who wish that we would go back to those times, who embrace and value racial segregation and discrimination, continue to use that flag as it was used in our past.
So say it does get banned, how will that help us move forward, and will it erase history? Yeah,
I think that it's important for viewers to understand that the issue is about government speech versus private speech. We have a First Amendment in this country that allows people to say what they want to say, and they should be able to do that. It's a valuable part of our Constitution. But what's going on in South Carolina and in Maryland with the license plates is about government speech. And the Supreme Court recently made a decision that said license plates, what's on license plates is more government speech than private speech. And so the government has a right to prevent certain messages on that speech. And that's why in Maryland we should prevent the Confederate battle flag from being on license plates, because it's like it's the government embracing that message, and we can't have that. The Supreme Court in their decision, they recently said this is government authority to do this. And the real problem that people need to understand is if you walk into somebody's house and you see a lot of swastikas, a lot of Americans are going to be uncomfortable in that house. The government house, the state capitol, that's everybody's house. And so to walk into the state capitol and see a flag that stands for racial hatred and racial oppression makes people uncomfortable, and no citizen should have to be uncomfortable in their own house.
And so because of that, because of all that it stirred up in terms of hurt and emotions, Walmart and a lot of other stores and online marketplaces have decided not to sell the flag anymore. There are calls now for monuments to be taken down as well that are Confederate monuments locally. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and also how the discussion from here on out will help people move forward. What should that discussion look like? Because clearly there are a lot of wounds here.
There are a lot of wounds here, and in a society with a long history of slavery and segregation, certainly, and a society that says that was wrong and we no longer allow that, certainly there are going to be controversies between the past and the present. And I think what's important in those controversies is context. We have to have balance and inclusion today. So yes, we want to acknowledge our history, and certainly there are going to be parks and monuments of individuals that may make us remember that difficult history, but they have made contributions to our society. So it's about balance and inclusion. And in Maryland, we had two Supreme Court justices, one, Justice Taney, who authored the Dred Scott decision, one of the worst decisions basically accepting slavery, and another, Justice Thurgood Marshall, who stood for breaking down the doors of Jim Crow segregation. So it may be in Maryland that we allow statues of both of those individuals, but it also may be that in some contexts we have to eliminate those statues or change names. And so it's about context, balance, and inclusion, and I think Maryland will have that discussion and we'll get it right.
It'll be interesting to see how states react to this and how we can move forward as a nation. I think this is a really important discussion that's being sparked by all of this.
Not only is it an important discussion, symbolism is important. So we need to, in fact, make sure that we send the right messages out with our symbolism. But symbolism is not how we get to a post-racial America. We have to have substance to get to a post-racial America. And that means eliminating the great disparities in our education, criminal justice systems, and in our employment situations. We have to do that to get to a post-racial America.
All right. Well, we appreciate your point of view. Thank you for being here as always.
My pleasure.
And we'll hopefully talk to you again soon. Stay with us. We're continuing our discussion about the flag with the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Don't go away. You're watching 11 TV Hill.